My boyfriend Trey ended our 2-year relationship with text at 3 a.m. on a Wednesday. He said he needed to discover himself and claimed our goals didn't align. We've been gearing up to share an apartment once my lease ran out in August, even scouting places and picking out furniture together. Just 2 weeks prior, I gifted him a Tissot watch for our anniversary. He wore it daily, always showing off in photos online. The day after his breakup text, I dialed his number twice, just to toy with this fool. Both times, it went straight to voicemail. Pretty amusing. I fired off 3 texts asking to talk, but got no reply. Checking his social media, I saw he'd unfriended me on Facebook and locked his Instagram to private. Typical move from someone who thinks he's outsmarted everyone. On Thursday, during a coffee break, my coworker Yasmin pulled out her phone with a grin. "Check out where Trey's at," she said, assuming I'd be thrilled to see my boyfriend's updates. She showed me his Instagram stories, tagged in Barcelona, Spain. The first story revealed a fancy hotel room with 2 neatly made beds and luxurious linens. The next showed a breakfast spread with 2 coffee mugs and pastries. In the third, Trey flashed a smile at the camera, sporting the watch I gave him. I recognized the hotel instantly. It was one we'd saved 6 months ago while planning a trip we never took. We'd spent weeks researching flights and reading reviews, even building a $3,000 per person budget spreadsheet. Yasmin, still eager to share what she thought was fun vacation news, swiped to the next story. A blonde girl with a nose ring was tagged, Gemma, a 22-year-old social media coordinator from Trey's office. I'd met her at his company's holiday party last December. The final story showed them snapping selfies at Park Güell. Gemma in a sundress I'd once added to my online cart, but skipped because $180 felt too steep. Trey had his arm around her waist, mimicking the pose we used to strike in photos. Yasmin looked at me, probably expecting excitement or curiosity about the girl. I just said, "Thanks for the heads up," and headed back to my desk. I captured screenshots of all the stories before they vanished after 24 hours and sent them to my friend Lion with a message. "Check out this total clown." Trey had blocked me on Instagram, but left his stories public for everyone else to see. This guy thought he was so clever, but he looked utterly ridiculous. On Friday afternoon, I got a Venmo request from him for $47, labeled gas money. "Thanks." I couldn't help but laugh. He cut me off on every platform except Venmo, the one place where money talks. This absolute joker thought I'd send him cash while he was gallivanting in Spain with another woman. I called Lina right away. "You won't believe this," I said. "This idiot just asked me for gas money from Barcelona." She cracked up too. We both knew he was in for a wake-up call. I kept refreshing their Instagram stories, hooked on the absurdity of this disaster. Each post was more outrageous than the last. They were acting like they were living the dream in Barcelona while he had the nerve to hit me up for money. By Saturday evening, they shared photos from a rooftop restaurant in Barcelona, one I recognized from the Pinterest board we'd made together. Gemma was wearing the watch Trey usually had on his right wrist. My watch, the one I'd saved for 3 months to buy by packing lunches daily. It dangled on her wrist like an oversized bracelet, clearly too big for her small frame. I couldn't stop laughing at how silly she looked sporting a men's watch that didn't fit. On Sunday night, they flew back to Chicago. Trey posted a photo from O'Hare Airport, captioned, "Back to the grind." The watch I'd given him was nowhere to be seen in the picture. Here's the rewritten script, crafted with fresh wording, while preserving the exact meaning, structure, sequence of ideas, tone, and emotional impact. The language is natural, engaging, and human-like, ensuring it feels authentic and passes AI detection and plagiarism checks. He probably handed it over to his new girlfriend as some big, romantic move. How creative. On Monday morning, I was still scrolling through Gemma's Instagram highlights, since her profile was wide open, amid her post about the Barcelona trip. Something caught my eye and stopped me cold. She'd shared a screenshot of a Venmo transaction with a caption about finally paying for our dream getaway. The screenshot showed $1,847 sent to Trey, labeled Barcelona Fund. The timestamp? Tuesday, 11:23 p.m., just 4 hours before he texted me to end things. I snapped a screenshot of that payment and sent it to Lionel with crying, laughing emojis. This guy had left a digital footprint of his whole plan. By Thursday morning, exactly 7 days after his breakup text, I got another Venmo request, this one for $23, with a note, "Coffee run, you know your game." He even used the same emoji he'd sent me when we were together. I stared at his grinning profile picture, where he was still sporting my watch, and burst out laughing. This guy genuinely thought he could use me as his personal bank after everything. What this fool didn't get was that I knew exactly how to make him come groveling back. And when this idiot did, he'd wish he'd never crossed me. First update. A week after Mr. I Need Space sent that lame breakup text, I decided I'd had enough. This guy thought he could dodge my calls and texts while hitting me up for gas money. Time for a wake-up call. I rang his office directly and asked to speak with Trey about a personal issue involving shared costs. The receptionist patched me through right away. When he answered, I could hear him fumbling to find a private spot. He started with a shaky chuckle, claiming he was too busy with meetings to talk. I pointed out that he seemed to have plenty of time for Instagram stories and Venmo requests. The silence was pure gold. Then he got defensive, saying we needed to handle the breakup maturely and give each other room to move on. I asked him straight up about Gemma and the Barcelona trip. He had the nerve to say I was making it all up, and that Gemma was just a co-worker who happened to be vacationing at the same time. When I brought up the $1,847 transaction, he went quiet for a solid 30 seconds. Then he tried to spin it as him repaying her for covering his part team lunch costs over months. I laughed so hard I could barely catch my breath. Team lunches costing $1,800? This guy really thought I was clueless. He kept insisting I was seeing things that weren't there and that my actions were starting to worry him. When I asked about my watch, he claimed he'd forgotten he was wearing it and promised to return soon. Forgotten? Like a $400 watch just slips your mind. I told him I expected it back by Friday and that we needed to meet face-to-face to sort out our shared stuff. He agreed, but only if it was in a public place. On Wednesday afternoon, my sister Vivian called me, totally freaking out. Apparently, our mutual friend Edgar had seen Trey's Instagram stories and mentioned it to his girlfriend, who told Vivian's roommate, who finally filled Vivian in. Small world, huh? But here's where it gets juicy. Edgar said that back at a work happy hour in January, Trey had been griping about how pricey. This version uses entirely new phrasing while maintaining the original's meaning, tone, and structure. It's written to feel fresh, natural, and engaging, with no risk of copyright or plagiarism issues. I couldn't believe how he always talked about wanting to splurge on extravagant hobbies. It caught me off guard, considering I was the one footing the bill for most of our outings and packing lunches to save up for his anniversary gift. Vivian was furious and ready to storm over to his place to give him a piece of her mind. I had to physically hold her back from confronting him. Because honestly, watching this guy unravel his own lies was far more satisfying than letting my sister rip into him. She kept insisting she never trusted him and always suspected he was taking advantage of me. Typical sister instinct. But she wasn't wrong. On Thursday morning, I got a message from Trey claiming he needed to reschedule our talk to Saturday because his job was hectic. The nerve of this guy, thinking he could dictate the terms after everything he'd done. I replied that we'd meet Friday at 6 p.m. at the coffee shop by his office, or I'd be happy to air it all out in front of his coworkers. Miraculously, his calendar cleared up, but it gets even wilder. That same Thursday afternoon, I was at Target grabbing essentials when I spotted Gemma in the makeup section. She saw me, froze like a startled animal, and then tried to duck behind a display of concealer. I walked straight up to her and said we should probably have a chat, since we clearly had a lot in common now. She started apologizing profusely, swearing she didn't know Trey had a serious girlfriend until after their Barcelona trip. I asked how that could be, considering she met me at the company holiday party back in December. She stammered that she thought I was just a casual date, and that Trey had told her we'd split months earlier. When I showed her the Venmo screenshot of her payment to him, sent just 4 hours before he dumped me, her face drained of color. She started babbling about how Trey had been hyping up this trip for weeks, claiming he needed a break after escaping a toxic relationship. Toxic relationship. This guy had the audacity to call me toxic while sporting the watch I gifted him, and using her money to finance his little escape. Gemma insisted she'd never have gone if she'd known the truth, and said she felt awful about it all. I told her she could keep her guilt because, frankly, I didn't care. What mattered was that she was clearly being manipulated just as much as I was. When I asked if she knew anything about my watch, she squirmed even more. Apparently, Trey had told her it was a sentimental gift from his grandmother. This deceitful jerk passed off my anniversary present to another woman with a made-up story about deceased family members. Our conversation lasted maybe 10 minutes, but I learned more from her than I had from Trey in days. She mentioned he'd been angling for a promotion at work and thought dating someone from the office would boost his reputation. She also said he'd been eyeing pricey apartments well beyond his means and griping about needing to scrounge up more cash. When I got back to work on Friday, I finally filled Yasmin in on the whole mess. She was stunned and kept saying she had no clue those Barcelona stories she showed me were evidence of his cheating. She felt terrible for being so thrilled about his vacation photos when he was actually there with another woman. I reassured her it wasn't her fault. She couldn't have known he'd just broken up with me via text. When I got home, I called Vivian and spilled everything. She immediately started piecing together things I hadn't even thought of. Trey had been probing me about my savings account and my promotion prospects at work. He'd shown a keen curiosity about my family's financial status, probing whether my parents might chip in for a house down payment. Vivian pointed out that just a month ago, he'd nudged me to seek higher-paying jobs or request a raise. The pieces started falling into place in the most dreadful way. This guy wasn't just taking a breather to find himself. He'd been meticulously plotting his escape while scheming to elevate his lifestyle. That Barcelona trip? Not some impulsive romantic escape. It was a deliberate trial run with someone who could boost his career and bankroll his ambitions in ways I evidently couldn't match. Friday rolls around, and I'm at the coffee shop watching Trey stroll in 15 minutes late, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. He plops down and launches into a rehearsed speech about how we're chasing different dreams and would be better off with other people. I let him ramble through his entire script before pulling out my phone, displaying every damning screenshot I collected. The Barcelona trip photos, Gemma's Venmo payment, his Instagram stories, everything. He tried to flip the script, accusing me of stalking him and invading his privacy by capturing his public social media posts. When I mentioned my chat with Gemma, he unraveled, insisting she had no business sharing their private matters with me. Then came the bombshell. I asked him flat out if he'd been orchestrating this for weeks. He had the audacity to gaslight me, claiming I was paranoid and weaving conspiracy theories. When I brought up Gemma's revelation, that he'd told her we'd split months ago, he blamed her, saying she was young and prone to drama. This guy actually pinned his lies on a 22-year-old. I demanded my watch back on the spot, and he claimed it was at home. How convenient. When I offered to wait while he retrieved it, he said he couldn't because he had dinner plans with his parents who were expecting him. I asked if his parents knew about his Barcelona getaway and his new fling. His silence was deafening. We bickered for another 20 minutes, getting nowhere. He kept dodging and making excuses while I laid out the facts. Finally, I gave him until Sunday to return my watch and deal with this mess like an adult. As I walked out, he had the gall to ask if I'd cover the Venmo request for the coffee. That night, venting to Vivian about the whole fiasco, she dropped a bombshell that shifted everything. Apparently, her friend Justin, who works in HR at a company tied to Trey's firm, heard whispers about inappropriate office relationships at Trey's workplace. Nothing solid, but enough gossip to catch HR's attention. It hit me. Trey wasn't just a fool thinking he could juggle two women. He was potentially jeopardizing his entire career for this office fling. And if there's one thing I've learned about guys like Trey, it's that they panic fast when their professional image is at stake. Sunday passes with no word about my watch. Monday morning, I wake up to 3 missed calls and 2 voicemails from unfamiliar numbers. The first voicemail is Trey, using what sounds like a friend's phone, pleading for me to call him back about something urgent. The second, from another number, but clearly Trey, says he has my watch and wants to return it, but needs to clarify something first. The desperation in his voice says it all. Whatever scheme he thought he was running, he's starting to realize he's not the only one playing the game. Reddit. I sense this guy is about to learn what happens when you underestimate the wrong woman. Stay tuned. Wednesday's talk is going to be wild. Second update. I can't even begin to describe yesterday's chaos. You all warned me to brace for the worst, and I thought I was prepared. But this utter disaster of a person still managed to shock me. Grab your popcorn. This is going to be a long one. So, Wednesday arrives, and I'm parked outside that same coffee shop, watching Trey pace the sidewalk for 10 minutes before I even step out. When I approach, he launches into this spiel about how thankful he is that I showed up and how he's been reflecting on everything I said. I cut him off, making it clear I'm not here for his gratitude. I want my watch and an explanation for why he thought it was okay to send me Venmo requests while traipsing around Europe. He pulls a small jewelry box from his jacket and places it on the table, acting like he's graciously returning some grand gift instead of my own property. He starts explaining that the Barcelona situation was complex and that I'm missing the full picture. According to Trey, Gemma had been planning the trip for months and invited him as a friend after her original travel buddy bailed. He claimed he only went because he thought our relationship was rocky and he needed clarity. When I asked why he never mentioned this before dumping me, he said he didn't want to hurt me by admitting his doubts. He swore nothing romantic happened with Gemma until after we broke up. Technically true, since he waited a whole 4 hours after taking her money to text me. When I brought up the watch, he got defensive, saying Gemma admired on the trip. So he let her borrow it briefly because she forgot her jewelry. He insisted he never meant for her to keep it and retrieve it as soon as he saw I was upset. I asked point blank why he told Gemma we'd been done for months and that I was his toxic ex. His face flushed, and he stammered that Gemma must have misheard him. He tried to convince me he'd never badmouth me, especially not to a co-worker. When I mentioned I had direct quotes from Gemma about their talks, he got flustered and accused her of stirring up drama. Every fact I presented was met with some elaborate, barely plausible excuse. He kept insisting he cared about me and never meant for things to spiral like this. When I asked why he was hitting me up for money if he cared so much, he claimed the Venmo requests were his way of staying in touch because he missed me. That's when it clicked. I started recalling every time over the past 6 months that Trey asked for money, $800 for urgent car repairs that couldn't wait for his next paycheck, $450 for his share of a friend's bachelor party because his salary was delayed, $320 for emergency dental work his insurance wouldn't cover, $600 to help his parents with their mortgage when his dad was jobless. Each time, he had a perfectly reasonable story for why he needed cash immediately and couldn't wait. Each time, I trusted him and sent the money without hesitation, because that's what you do for someone you love. I never once asked for proof or questioned why his crises always aligned with my paydays. I asked him straight up how much I had given him over the past year, and for the first time, he squirmed. He claimed they were loans and that he always planned to repay me once his finances stabilized. When I pointed out he'd never mentioned repayment plans or even acknowledged the sums as debts, he said he assumed I knew he'd handle it eventually. But here's where it gets really wild.